Welcome to Sheikh Hamdan's Fans official channel, where we delight in sharing the latest updates on Sheikh Hamdan and the esteemed royal family. Today, we're thrilled to share a poignant poem penned by Sheikh Hamdan, dedicated to his first love, Haadiya, and the unforgettable memories they shared. In the whispers of my heart, I discovered love's gentle presence. It was a quiet storm that stirred within me, softly yet powerfully, rearranging the landscape of my emotions in ways I never anticipated. This unexpected feeling crept up on me, uninvited yet undeniable. At first, I silenced its presence, hiding it beneath the surface of my daily life. I convinced myself it was merely a fleeting sentiment, a momentary spark of admiration, warmth, and connection. Yet, my heart betrayed me, reacting with unbridled emotion every time we drew near. The way my soul awakened in your presence, the way my thoughts wandered to you, and the way my heart beat in harmony with yours. All of these whispers convinced me that this feeling was far more profound than I initially thought. Join us as we delve into the poetic musings of Sheikh Hamdan, and discover the profound emotions that stirred within him as he navigated the uncharted territories of love. My hands felt bare, a hollow reminder of the absence I felt when we weren't together. My mind wandered, drifting to thoughts of you, even as I struggled to focus on the world around me. Every fleeting thought, every stray emotion, seemed to whisper the same truth. My feelings for you ran far deeper than I dared to admit. Yet, I remained silent, paralyzed by the fear of what might happen if I spoke my heart. Fear of rejection, of awkwardness, of shattering the delicate balance of our relationship. What if my love wasn't reciprocated? What if I lost not only the promise of something more but also the simple joy of what we already shared? That was a risk I couldn't bring myself to take. So I wore a mask of calm, smiling and laughing and pretending that my emotions weren't swirling with every passing moment. I listened and supported and cared, all while holding back the words that longed to break free. There were moments when the weight of my silence became almost suffocating, when vulnerability threatened to expose my deepest emotions. Yet, each time, fear, doubt, and the haunting possibility of rejection held me back. I swallowed my truth, pretending to be fine, while secretly carrying the heavy burden of unspoken love. It wasn't that I desired silence or lacked the courage to envision a different outcome. I had imagined the liberation of confessing my feelings countless times, only to be halted by uncertainty, hesitation, and the agonizing prospect that my love might never be enough. So I remained quiet, not because my love was insignificant, but because I feared the world might not be ready to hear it. Sleepless nights became my refuge, where I replayed every moment, every glance, every conversation, and every small kindness that set my heart racing. I wondered if I had overlooked signs, hints that perhaps my feelings weren't as unrequited as I dreaded. But doubt crept in, whispering that I was deceived by my own desires, that I was foolish to cling to something that might never be. I convinced myself that I was protecting something precious, but in truth, I was shielding myself from the uncertainty of love. Something within me remained fragile, a delicate emotion I wasn't ready to relinquish. Yet, deep down, I acknowledged the truth. I was shielding myself from rejection, disappointment, and the haunting possibility that the love I had carefully concealed was never meant to flourish. Despite the silence, my love persisted, weaving itself into the fabric of my existence. It became a quiet, constant presence, a secret I carried like an unspoken prayer. There were moments when I convinced myself that keeping it hidden was the right choice, that love in its purest form didn't always require expression. However, there were also moments when the weight of my silence became overwhelming, when I yearned for the courage to break free from my own restraint. I watched as life unfolded, as opportunities slipped through my fingers like sand. Time reshaped everything around me, and the chance for something more seemed to drift further away. Still, I clung to the words I had never spoken. Was it foolish? Selfish? Cowardly? I couldn't say. All I knew was that my love remained untouched by time, unshaken by fear, a love that had become an integral part of me, yet had never been given the chance to truly exist beyond my own heart. The longer I stayed silent, the heavier my emotions became. Silence had a way of growing, transforming into something more substantial than just unspoken words. It became a wall, a barrier I had constructed between my feelings and reality. Initially, it was protection, but over time, it became a prison. There were days when I convinced myself I was fine, that loving in silence was better than risking loss. Yet, there were other days when the loneliness of my own emotions felt unbearable. I saw moments that could have been mine slip away, not because fate was cruel, but because I had been too afraid to reach out and claim them. I wondered what would happen if I finally found the courage to speak. If I finally spoke, if I let the words escape, if I took the risk and shattered the delicate balance I had maintained for so long, would I be met with understanding or would I lose everything? That fear always kept me still, always pulling me back. Yet, life didn't wait for me. It kept moving, pushing forward, and reshaping everything around me. I watched as things changed. New faces, new conversations, new possibilities. With every change, my silence felt heavier, like a mist that I could never catch again. Then came the hardest realization. The moment when I understood that I might not be the only one who had kept quiet. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the only one carrying unspoken words. But by then, so much time had passed, and so many things had been left unsaid for so long that even if I spoke now, it might be too late. That fault haunted me more than anything. The idea that fear had not only stolen my words but had also stolen my chance. The love I had cherished in my heart for so long had been wasted, not because it wasn't real, but because I had never allowed it to become something more. Still, I stayed quiet, because after all this time, I didn't know how to be anything else. There came a point when my silence no longer felt like a choice but a habit, something so ingrained in me that I couldn't imagine breaking it. I had held on to my love for so long, keeping it locked away, that speaking it aloud felt almost impossible. The words had settled deep inside me, becoming part of who I was, and the thought of releasing them felt like tearing something from my very soul. But the world around me didn't stop. Life moved forward, whether I was ready or not. I watched as things changed, as people grew, and as time reshaped everything I thought would stay the same. Through it all, I carried my love in silence, a quiet presence that never left my sight. There were moments when I felt like I was on the verge of breaking, when the weight of it all pressed down so heavily that I thought I might finally give in. I imagined what it would feel like to let the words escape, to finally give them life. Would it be a relief? Would it set me free? Or would it unravel everything I had worked so hard to protect? That uncertainty kept me still, even as the distance between what was and what could have been grew wider. I held on to my silence like a lifeline, because as much as I longed to speak, I was even more afraid of what might happen once I did. But the hardest part wasn't the silence itself, it was watching opportunities slip through my fingers, watching the moments where I could have spoken, where I could have changed the course of our story. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I realized that my silence had become a shield, a protective barrier that kept me safe from the uncertainty of love. But it also kept me trapped, locked away from the possibility of something more. And so, I remained, suspended in a state of quiet longing, unsure of how to break free, unsure of how to find my voice. As the moments slipped away, never to return, I was left with the haunting realization that there were things I would never get back. Things I had let go of without ever truly reaching for them. The weight of regret settled heavy on my heart, yet even with all that longing, I still couldn't bring myself to change. Maybe I had waited too long, allowing fear to take root deep within me. Or perhaps, in some twisted way, I had grown comfortable with my silence, with the safety of never knowing what could have been. So I stayed quiet, even when my heart ached with every unspoken word. As time passed, I began to wonder if silence was all I would ever have. Would this love I had carried so carefully, so cautiously, remain nothing more than a whisper in my heart, unheard, unnoticed, and eventually forgotten by everyone except me? I tried to convince myself that I had done the right thing, that keeping quiet had protected something fragile. But on sleepless nights, that reassurance felt hollow. I lay awake, wondering if I had made the worst mistake of my life. What if I had been wrong? What if my silence hadn't protected anything but my own fear? What if, instead of holding on to something precious, I had let it slip away, piece by piece, moment by moment, until there was nothing left? I started noticing things I had ignored before, the way the distance between us had grown, not because of anger or resentment, but simply because time had a way of creating gaps between people who didn't fight to hold on. I saw how life had moved forward, reshaping everything in ways I hadn't expected, and how I had changed, becoming someone who wasn't just afraid to speak but someone who no longer knew how. There were moments when I caught glimpses of what could have been, paths I might have walked if only I had chosen differently. I saw them in old conversations, quiet glances, and the way certain memories still lingered, even after everything else had faded. But the past was the past, and no amount of regret could rewrite it. So I told myself that maybe this was how it was meant to be. That some love stories weren't meant to be spoken, that some feelings were meant to stay unshared. Maybe, in some way, that made them even more real, unshaped by expectations or disappointments, but by the simple fact that they had existed, even if only in silence. Still, there was a part of me that couldn't help but wonder, if I had one more chance, just one, would I finally find the courage to speak? Or had I stayed quiet for so long that silence